Welcome back to the Check Swing Podcast with myself and, of course, the starter show, Mr. Coach Sander himself, looking quite dapper in the Philadelphia Eagles, Philadelphia football t-shirt there. It's all representing the Eagles. You already know what it is. Here on the Check Swing Podcast, we are 4 for 4 guys when it comes to our professional sports, maybe even 5 for 5. It's a thing in Philly now. It's 5 for 5. But welcome back. Appreciate y'all for checking this out. Appreciate y'all joining us. Appreciate y'all coming back for yet another week of the Check Swing Podcast. Hope you guys enjoyed last week's show as we took a review of the 2022 year in sports. If you've not had a chance to see that yet, go ahead over to our YouTube after this show. Not right now, but go over to the YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/New Twist Radio and type in Check Swing Podcast and you'll see us. You'll see all our shows there. But like I like to start every show off, I like to talk to my people. So Miguel, how you been, man?
I'm doing well, sir. Doing well. Forgive me if I squint every now and again, or I look like I'm blind. I got some new frames, and I finally got bifocals, so I'm able to see you, and then not see you, and then see you, and then not see you. So I'm still trying to find that line.
So if I make a point and then I see you going like this, that doesn't necessarily mean you agree. That might mean you're trying to see me.
I'm trying to see. Yeah, I'm trying. I'm trying to use the bifocal, and I last year I made a mistake. I made two mistakes. I did the progressives.
Uh-huh.
They're like, oh, you gotta, they're gonna like look wavy, but you just gotta find a line. So I'm like looking like, looking stupid, on the train. Looks like I'm trying to commit suicide.
Well,
And then
I was going to ask you, did you get the kind that are like you can't tell they're bifocals from like
that's what
if
those
I'm
are.
looking at you?
That's what the progressives are. Because
Yeah.
yeah. So I if I would have got them a little wider, it would have been like $200 more. So I was like, nah, nit. So I got the narrow John. So I had to if I wanted to read something, if like from here, I would have to be like, there it is. You know what I mean? So I was like, just give me the bifocal line and give me my transitions back because I didn't have transitions last year. So now I'm good.
Oh, well, I'm glad you can see now. I'm good. I'm
Yeah,
glad you can see.
I looked at my coworker last week. I was like, oh wow, I didn't know you were black.
Hey, well, now you can see, and then you see why I have a face for radio. You actually see in the human flesh. I know this is not where we're going with the show, but before I go there, I do want to let people know that we're going to be talking about the NFL playoffs, the NFL's wild card weekend, Super Wildcard weekend. We will talk about that. A lot of great game, man. Those games are really good. Wasn't they, Miguel?
With the exception of one, but and another one that almost went out of hand, but that comeback was amazing.
The comeback was crazy. That's what made the game good, and we'll talk about that. Last night's game was. I tell you what, I want to say that no matter I want to believe that no matter what two teams were playing, I would have thought that game kind of sucked last night. And it might be my biasism, but we'll get to that. But I want to ask you a question, Miguel.
Mm-hmm.
What's your favorite movie, if you have one?
Oh, see. I have them categorized. So
Okay.
I mean, since we're a sports show, do you want to go
So let me
sports
ask you
movie?
this. Let me ask you this.
Go for it.
What are your categories when you have them categorized? Like, what are your categories?
Sports,
Uh huh.
action, and everything else.
What What's your favorite comedy movie?
Hmm. Coming to America.
Coming to America.
Both,
That's a good one.
both of them actually. I actually really. I know the second
Second one was
one.
really good too.
I like the second one. I think because just when you thought it was going to get ratchet, it didn't, and I think that's why some people didn't like it. I personally like that movie.
I thought it was pretty good. Let me ask you a question. If they took Coming to America and decided that they were going to remake the movie but under a different premise. Don't mean a sequel. I mean they're gonna remake the movie, different actors, but under like a different premise. Like maybe he's not the king of Zamunda, but maybe he's like a real, I don't know, maybe he's like the just a regular Zamunda kid. And then they kind of remake the movie that way. Like, would you be okay? Like, how would you feel about that?
I think in a case like that, it would depend on who the actors are. To
Hmm.
be honest, because I think if you have like a remake, because that's all it is, nowadays, I'm wondering if it's because they're promoting the heck out of Night Court, the new Night Court.
I do kind of want to watch that. Not going to lie.
I don't.
Um,
I
One of my
don't.
favorite movies, Miguel, if not my favoriteest movie. Which do you know what my favorite movie is?
No.
Okay, one of my favorite movies is being kind of remade in a sense. It's not a sequel. Actually, this movie had three sequels or two sequels, or maybe even three. I think the third one like kind of didn't count. The third sequel, not the third movie of the trilogy. The actual fourth movie of the trilogy just didn't count to me or most people that like the movie. Anyway, um, the movie is House Party.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
House Party is like one of my favorite movies, right? And they're remaking it, and the way they're remaking it is very interesting. And I
Yeah.
kind of want to see it,
Hmm.
but even when I think about it, I just be like, wow, they could have named it something totally different.
Yeah, they didn't have to go with the heart. I mean, I guess people would have thought like it's a house party kind of theme, but yeah, I don't think they needed to
People our
use.
age, yeah,
Yeah.
people from our generation definitely would have probably thought that if I end up seeing it in the theater or when I will see that movie eventually at some point, some way, somehow. Um, but I'm just like, man, it's kind of weird to me, like
Yeah.
the whole house party thing, and then but they at LeBron's house. I mean, the premise behind the story, when they're making the story, I think I kind of like it intrigues me. It makes
It's
it
it's
interesting,
it is.
but it's like in the old house party it was like lower budget in a sense, mainline cinema. It was, but you didn't really have. I mean, you had young and upcoming stars. You had a young Martin Lawrence. You had a young Tashina Arnold.
Mhm.
You had a young. I'm sorry, not Tashina. You had a young Tisha Campbell.
Campbell.
You had a young AJ Johnson. You had a young Kid and Play, but everybody knew who they were. AJ Johnson, the comedian, not even the female AJ, but the comedian AJ Johnson. But in this one, you got like I saw Snoop in there. There's like a couple other people, so that almost kind of takes away from it for me in a sense. Like I get it, they're at LeBron's house, and I don't want to break the movie down and nothing like that because I do want to see it. But it's just kind of, I think I feel some type of way, man. Am I getting old?
No, I mean it's just like the movie A Star Is Born, right?
Uh,
That movie has been remade 3 times. It originally came out in like the 40s. Then it was remade in 76, and then it was remade again with Bradley Cooper and uh, the you know who I'm talking about. Um,
yeah,
but
I know. I'm
each
trying to think of her name now. I can't even think of her name
but
right
it's
now.
it's funny because every single time that movie came out, it actually won an Academy Award or it won major awards.
Now, let me. Did they change it each time that it was remade? Did they kind
It
of
was the
change?
exact same premise
Mhm.
every single time, but it was about the actors. I don't remember who was in the original one, but the second one was Barbara Streisand,
Yeah,
and then the third one was Bradley Cooper and whoever she was. Um, her name escapes me. So
me too.
I'm all for. I was watching an interview because I think Jerry Lewis, who was a comedian who passed like 10 years ago, he
Was
was
it that
asked.
long ago he passed? I feel like he didn't pass that long. I feel like we
Might
all
have been like
thought
five.
he passed. like I literally just looked this up the other day, and it's such a coincidence. I'm gonna look it up right now, but continue your thought.
It was probably sooner than that, but he was on one of the shows, and I think he was on David Letterman, early 2000s, and he was asked that question, like, "What are your thoughts about, like, all these remakes going on at that time?"
Mm.
And he's like, he didn't want to like criticize like actors and stuff like that, but he actually thought that it actually brings to present day some versions of of those movies, and it modernizes it for like the younger culture,
Yeah.
which I get to a degree. I just hate when they take the original premise and like kind of twisted it around. That's why I was nervous about Coming to America too, especially when it went like borderline ratchet. But I just love the fact that they kept it honorable, and it was like it seemed like a whole new movie until you saw like some of the older characters return. Um, uh, and the Wesley Snipes character was freaking
Oh, he was funny.
hysterical. Oh, that was
But
hysterical.
see, the difference is the uh Coming to America wasn't a remake; it was a sequel. It
It
was
was
like
a
a
sequel, right?
continuation.
Right.
So it's a little bit. Jerry Lewis died in 2017.
Right. So there you go.
I'm just saying, like I just had a conversation with somebody and we thought he died a long time ago too. And then I was like, wait a minute, he died recently.
You know what it was? He was off. He because he did the that telethon every Labor Day for like 50 years, and I think they took him off the air like 10 years ago. I think that's what it was. That's why I thought when he that's
Yeah.
why I thought he died, because he couldn't do telethons anymore.
Kind of like, and I hate this, kind of like Dick Clark. It was like when Dick Clark, when they took him off the New Year's Eve, he died a
Yeah.
couple years later. But it was like everybody thought he was dead because he wasn't on the New Year's Eve thing anymore.
And you remember he made a cameo, I think, the year before he died, and he
Hmm.
was it was sad to see because it was like the end of an era. And
Yeah,
you know
yeah.
there's a, not to go completely sidebar, but you remember a artist, oh, what's his name? Lonely Teardrops. Uh Lonely Teardrops. Oh my goodness, I can't. There
Oh, like some like 80s
uh,
sound.
no, he was actually from the 60s.
Oh, well, yeah. I don't know. I wasn't. I don't know.
Oh,
Got me on that one.
anyway, so this famous singer, I think his last name was Wilson. Jackie Wilson. Jackie Wilson.
Oh, okay, Jackie Wilson.
He had a stroke in the middle of a show in Cherry Hill, New Jersey in 1975, and he actually collapsed on stage, wound up having a stroke, wound up being in a coma for 7 years. Um, but Dick Clark actually wound up paying his medical expenses while he was in the hospital.
Oh, wow.
And in 75, 76, and 77, Elvis Presley actually did the same thing. So
Hmm.
they actually paid for his medical
Interesting.
expense. Yeah.
Interesting tidbit there for the people that people checking this out. We'll ask that question maybe in the summertime, and you'll probably have a chance to win some money. So if you get somebody else to answer the question with you on that same day, you'll win some money too. Six
Oh,
six nine two seven five zero three two three. We're about to get into it, y'all. This weekend was Wild Card Weekend for the NFL, Super Wild Card Weekend as they call it now. I don't know why they got to call it Super Wild Card Weekend, but still Wild Card Weekend. Um, but a lot of good games this weekend. A lot of good games. You had Cincinnati and Baltimore, which was a good game.
that
You had
was heartbreaking.
man, I didn't even see the game. I saw the highlights, and my heart broke in the highlights.
So
I had
so
no idea what happened in the game.
so I go ahead and intro. I'll get
You
to
had
that.
you had the Cincinnati and Baltimore. You had Buffalo and Miami, which was a good game. You had the L.A. Chargers. They need to go back to San Diego, so we just call them San Diego. But you had the L.A. Chargers and the Jacksonville Jaguars, which turned out to be historic. You had the Giants and the Twin. Oh, excuse me, the Giants and the Vikings, and you had San Fran and Seattle. good game up until one turnover. Then it just went south. And you had the Cowboys and the Buccaneers, which honestly was it was a disappointment of a game. I should say. I shouldn't say the game stunk. It was a disappointment of a game because as much as I and most of the people that I know hate the Cowboys, you were kind of looking forward to it to be being a good game. You were looking forward to seeing Tom Brady be Tom Brady, and he just wasn't. But and did I miss any game? I feel like I missed one of the games there.
No, you
I think
covered
I
them
got
all.
them all.
Yeah, you covered
Got
them
them
all.
all.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I got them all. Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
6 games. 6 games.
So Miguel,
Sir.
my friend, I must ask you, what was your favorite game from this weekend and why?
My
I know I kind
favorite.
of caught you off guard with that one. I don't know what my favorite game was this weekend. Which game did you enjoy watching the most?
The game that I enjoyed watching the most, I want to say, is the Jacksonville. First off, this weekend was probably the first weekend in like 19 years that I watched every single playoff game from beginning to end. Well, minus the Cowboys game and minus the Seattle game. But the Jacksonville Chargers game, because I always like to see, number one, I like the underdog. I always root for the underdog. And number two, I always like to see when things don't go well in the beginning and then there's a change and then all of a sudden there's a flip.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some sentiment, of course, rooting for Dougie Peterson, you know, and to be able to overcome not one, not two, not three, but four interceptions in the first quarter, three to one person, Asante Samuel Jr., who, like father, like son, is an interception hawk, but tackles for naught. Um, uh, Not a big fan of the quarterback, Trevor Lawrence, but he showed me a lot during this game, and there were some questionable play calls, especially on the side of San Diego's, which I believe today they fired their offensive coordinator and a couple other coaches.
Yeah, I believe a quarterback coach or something like that. The quarterback coach got promoted. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, they had some people on the chopping block out there.
yeah. I think if it was 10 years ago, it would have been the head coach. But now that you have like a 75-man coaching staff, you're able to kind of like fire groups of coaches instead of just the head coach. But to be able to, and then so to be able to overcome that first quarter, and then 27-0 at the half, and then it's like 30-3, middle of the third, and then to be able to come back to win 31-30, I just think is absolutely amazing. That was fun. That was fun to watch. That comeback was fun to watch, and I believe it was the third greatest comeback in playoff history, if I'm not mistaken.
Third greatest comeback in playoff history, and I must say I'm going to toot my horn a little bit, but I'm going to untoot it a little later. After the first interception, I said Jacksonville. I said to myself, I said Jacksonville's going to win this game.
You said
They're
that.
going to win.
So you said that after the first interception. Did you say that after the fourth interception?
Um, I don't remember if I said it after the fourth interception, but I will tell you, I thought through a probably until they got to about 20. I said Jacksonville's going to win this game, and then I want to say I forgot how it went down in my head, but they scored at the end of halftime or right before halftime, excuse me, and I said they're going to make this game. And I backed off of they're going to win this game. And I said they're going to make this game interesting. I just had a
Yeah,
feeling they're going to make this game interesting.
yeah. I had that, I had
Um,
that, I had that feeling too.
I didn't feel like at halftime. I didn't feel like they were going to win. Like I had a small feeling, a small tingle when they came out from halftime, and I was just like, you know what? I think they're going to do something, but I didn't think they were going to win. But the way they came back and won that game, they persevered. They held, excuse me, LA to 3 points in the second half. Man, man, you kind of wonder what would have happened had they played the whole game like that. Of course, San Diego. I keep want to call them San Diego. The Chargers shot themselves in the foot. They didn't run that clock down, and then they wanted to keep their foot on the pedal. And the coach even said it coming out of halftime. He said, "No, we're gonna come out here. We're gonna stick to the game plan. Whatever he said, they're not, going to let up because they're." He understands that they are a good team, and you can't let up in that situation. But the fact that they didn't run the ball more just to burn some of that clock out, and they really couldn't, like they couldn't move the ball. They just could not move forward.
See,
Was
but
amazing.
but here's the thing, and it's a tale of two versions of that. You appreciate a coach that's aggressive, like a Doug Peterson, or like the Dallas Cowboys coach yesterday. But then I think the frustrating part of the Tampa Bay Cowboys game was, and even the announcers were like, he's. I think there was a time there was like 4th and 3, and like he chose the punt, and he really play and usually that's a sign from defensive coaches tend to do that. They tend to be a little bit more conservative and try to win with defense and stuff like that. But it's like Tom Brady's not Tom Brady. You need points. You want to keep the ball away from the Cowboys, and you keep kind of giving it back to them. And and I don't want to. Congrats to the Cowboys. Blah blah blah. Whatever. They can go to hell. But I think I think the reason why they literally won is because they faced a team that had no running game. They were literally one dimensional and had a 45-year quarterback that I think out of all the games that weekend, it wasn't just it wasn't frustrating to watch. It was actually sad because you could see, how you see all the interceptions or you see the incompletions, and you're just like, wow, that's the 45-year-old Tom Brady trying to harness or unlock the 35-year-old Tom Brady. And you could see the throw that he used to be able to make, and then for him to not be able to make that throw anymore, he's short, he's wide. You know, it's like it was sad. To me, it was sad because it's like, I don't I think he's done. And of course, just when you say that, he's probably going to marry another supermodel and then play another 10 years. But I I think this is truly now the end, and I just hope he doesn't try
You
to
know,
hang on for another couple of
here's
years.
I was thinking the same thing, right?
Yeah.
I was thinking the same thing. Like this is probably it. This is probably it for him. Um, but and to be honest, if you really think about it, he wasn't all that great last year, but he wasn't that bad that he was yesterday, and how bad he's been this season. Um, so I guess you can say he's gradually kind of degressed, but it's something about it being Tom Brady where you're like, he might still have it. You know what I mean? He might. I think. I think there was a point in the season for the Buccaneers where, you'll remember, it might have been 3 or 4 weeks in, might have been the second week, where he like got in his lineman's face and got to yelling and snapped on him, and ever since then it just hasn't been the same.
Yeah.
It's not been the same. And those linemen might have, most of the time, the linemen, that Brady did that in the past. The linemen snap into shape, they keep him clean. Maybe these new age linemen ain't about that life. Maybe they're about that. You stay out my face, life. You let me do my job. You stay out my face, or you're gonna be dirty the whole game,
I
and I
don't
can
know.
make it look like an accident.
Listen, maybe he tries to give it one more good go. He doesn't have to worry about
In Tampa Bay,
or the Raiders. No, I don't. Maybe Tampa Bay. Maybe he wants to, just give it one more go and try to start a season without the home issues that he had to deal with in the preseason, and then had to go away and then come back and then deal with the divorce midseason. Take the whole off season, be clear, fresh start. With a new supermodel, and then play that season.
Does does San Francisco flirt with the idea of bringing Tom Brady home?
No,
Not at
Espe-
all.
not at all.
They have their own quarterback controversy right now with the three they have.
Right. Not just that, but also too, they see what Tom Brady was in the playoffs, and I don't think they could. You would have to literally mortgage the future for 1 year of Tom Brady. I don't think they're willing to do that.
Yeah.
At least with Tampa Bay, I mean, they had no quarterback.
Here, let me rearrange my question just a little bit. Does San Francisco flirt with the idea of Tom Brady if they lose this weekend?
No, not at all. They shouldn't.
No.
Not at all.
So who's their quarterback next year? Not
Yes.
that we care because we're not San
Yeah.
Francisco, but who's they have three quarterbacks there,
Yeah, all
which
of
means
them.
they don't have any quarterback.
No, they have all of them. I mean, as long as they're all under contract, they they have them
Yeah, they're
all.
under contract. What I'm saying is who is who will be the quarterback next year if they lose this weekend? I would think if Purdy wins the Super Bowl, Purdy's the quarterback if he looks good doing it. Maybe.
I mean, Garoppolo
But
took them to
Foles
the.
wasn't the guy, you know. So
Yeah, I mean, Garoppolo took them to the Super Bowl, and they were looking to trade him what a day later after they lost to Kansas City.
yeah, yeah, I guess you're right.
I don't get. I mean, I get it, but then I don't. It's like that would be like trading. You know, that would have been like trading. I mean, we wound up trading Nick Foles eventually, only because of Carson Wentz. But that would have been like trading Nick Foles like the day after we won the Super Bowl. You know.
Yeah, yeah. But not starting your Super Bowl winning quarterback is almost the same thing.
But that's different though because he had, you know, it's like all right, it's like Montana and Young. Remember that whole transition,
Hmm.
and Montana was coming back after getting killed in the playoffs by the Giants the year before that shoulder injury, and and all of a sudden there's a quarterback controversy, but everybody with eyes knew that Montana was done. It's Young's time. It's just a matter of which way you want to go. Um, but it's like everybody on San Francisco is almost the same, roughly the same age. They're like 2 or 3 years apart. So I think it's a good problem to have, Um,
Probably,
because
probably.
worst case, you trade one of them for a second, third round pick, and you set yourself up for the future. You just have to hope that the one that you pick is the one that.
Who would be your quarterback? I love putting you on the spot. I love putting you on the spot.
See, the only thing about Purdy is that I think history says that you don't put all your stock in a rookie quarterback that goes on a run.
Hmm.
Look at Philly history. You remember Hoying, Bobby Hoying? He went on that run like what 6, 7 in a row, and then we gave him a contract, and then he couldn't throw a ball past 7 yards. Um, I lean towards Garoppolo because of experience. So
Interesting.
that would be my guy, or go after Lamar. You know what I mean? See, since his days in Baltimore are pretty much over.
Yeah, that's a whole another conversation, right? I
He's
didn't think about that. Him,
eh,
Lamar ended up in San Francisco would be very interesting. That would make that offense. Could you imagine what that offense would be with Lamar Jackson? Oh my goodness.
which is kind of sad because like it's like he's kind of getting a bad rap, partly because he didn't fly with the team to the playoff game, but it's usually a team rule, or most teams will not allow somebody to fly that's injured. It's just a common thing,
Right.
But a couple of teammates of his popped up. I think the linebacker that they just re-signed. They said if Lamar was playing, we would have won.
Mhm.
However, like that was the other playoff game that I watched from beginning to end, and I think it was just It was that was probably the saddest because I'm not a Ravens fan, but you kind of inherit the area, and I was rooting for him. I was rooting for the Ravens. You know what I mean? Um,
I root for the Ravens. I root for them.
yeah, I like the colors. They're in the AFC, so they don't bother my Eagles. Um, and they were a pretty good team to root for. And Huntley I just think he pressed because he had a great first quarter. I mean, he was on target. He was balling. Um, but I think the inexperience kind of caught up. A couple injuries caught up with them. I hope he doesn't leave because he's really popular around town, and kind of gives an uplift to the area and whatnot. So yeah, there's just a lot of tension in the DMV about
What's
the situation.
what? Yeah, I was going to ask you what's the post down there? What are people down there saying about Lamar Jackson and about the Ravens in general?
So the kind of have to go through like the history, not a whole history, but it just seems like there's. I was reading a sports article about Baltimore sports, and it seems like there's a premise about the way one culture is treated versus the other culture.
Okay.
So just to kind of make it plain, Eddie Murray wasn't treated very well, even though, he contributed to the area, hit 500 home runs as an Oriole, between teams. But it wasn't treated right, as well as Frank Robinson. But then you have Brooks Robinson and Cal Ripken Jr., who are like literally gods. And then you see what's written about Lamar Jackson in the paper, and it's well, why couldn't he fly with the team? Or is he really injured as he says? And because he flat out said, like, I tried to go, but like my knee is not stable. Like, I got to think about the rest of my career. And I think Robert Griffin, he actually chimed in, and he had a picture of himself. I think you remember when he was playing with his ACL,
He had a
practically
brace on.
retore it. Whoever, I can't remember who the head coach was at the time, but that coach ruined his career, and it's his fault. That whole
It
family
was
stuff.
Shanahan, Mike
Shanahan.
Shanahan. Yep.
And that was the time where the person that did the surgery, Andrews, he's the ACL king,
hmm
told him like he shouldn't be on the field. And they're like, well, our medical staff says he's good. And Robert Griffin showed a picture of himself re-tearing it in a game, and he's like, I
I remember
respect.
watching that game when it happened.
It was atrocious. It was an abomination of a coach putting out his player, hanging him out to dry, you know.
hmm
But he told him, like, listen, Lamar, like, this is your livelihood. This is your career. Like, protect yourself. This is, it's not worth doing long term career damage.
Right.
But again,
Right.
it's almost like, you know, people of color seem to be, you know, attacked in a different way, or not given as much leeway as people
So
that
you're
are.
saying that possibly if it were Joe Flacco, it
That was the
the sounds might have been a little different.
And it's funny because that's the example that was given. It's like Joe Flacco, who literally was not nowhere near the talent as Lamar Jackson is, like, still revered to this day. And he had one good season, which was the Super Bowl year. Never was able to replicate it, but because he won the Super Bowl, blah blah blah. They even say Ray Lewis is treated like garbage. Uh, um,
Ray Lewis, really.
yeah, well, because they call him, the ex murderer, and stuff like that.
Mm.
Um, and I was even listening to a radio program where they were talking about this was before the Lamar Jackson injury, but they were talking about, I think, one of the tight ends. He was a rookie tight end, and how he kept practicing, and he kept saying, listing himself as day to day, but then he couldn't play. But then they started questioning, like, well, does he really have the heart? And if he doesn't have the heart, but then, you know what I mean? So they do that kind of compare contrast, but it's so blatantly obvious, but they're just not saying it in an obvious way.
I see what you're saying.
You
Well,
know.
that's something down there in Baltimore, man. That's one place I never really heard of that in Baltimore. I know a lot of people. I know a lot of fans down there, and family, friends, and stuff like that in Baltimore. But I just never knew. I never knew that that came up because you don't really hear that in Philly,
Right.
right? Like you don't hear about that. People get treated different. We treat everybody the same.
Yeah.
You play hard,
We
we'll
are
love you.
equal opportunity booer. Yes.
Absolutely. Like I was just watching earlier today. I was watching a I don't know if it's a documentary or what you would call it, but it was like a football life, a football
Yeah.
story,
Yeah.
one of
Yeah.
them shows. It was about Ricky Waters. This is my first time seeing it, and they were talking about his personality and how that may have kept him from keep it might keep him from getting the recognition that he deserves to get, namely from like the Hall of Fame or something like that. And um, I was just thinking about it. They were talking about the for who for what situation, and in Philly, I really feel like it really doesn't matter your skin color. If you do that in Philly, we're going to get on you. We're going to get on you. Like had it been Dallas Goddard or Zach Ertz that did it, Zach Ertz sometimes was getting killed up here for some of this for not being able to block,
Yeah.
not being able to run block. You can't even have him on the field. He was getting killed out here for that. They was getting him.
That's why
So
when you hear that speech from Kelsey at the Super Bowl,
mm,
remember what Lane Johnson can't stay off the juice. Yeah,
mm-hmm.
that's real. That's a Philly thing, and I think with Baltimore sports down here, it's of course we're like right at the Mason Dixon line, and it's like the beginning of where the shadow starts to turn.
Mm,
Just making it plain. Just like
yeah.
I think we had that conversation where I was talking, in regards to having a player on my team, and I was told that people say that he's not a good teammate, and I was like, so then I went to his actual coach, and the coach was like taken aback, like he's a great teammate. He just struggles with some of the mental aspects of the game. That's it. But he's a great teammate, and come to find out that the issue was not that he wasn't a great teammate. The issue was that he spoke up for himself, and he
Mm-hmm.
speaks very well, and he speaks very proper, even for a high school kid. But he'll flat out say like, no, that doesn't make me feel comfortable. I won't do that. So an older school coach will take that as all insubordinate stuff like that. But it's like he's telling you something. If it's any other player, you know what I mean. So
Yeah.
it's like so.
Yeah, it's a shame it has to be like that for certain people, a certain population. Um, but sports is not the only place where it's like that, right? You think about how they say it's like a woman has to work 10 times harder to get the same recognition a man gets in doing the same thing, um, and you have the workplace pay scale disparities and things like that. Um, so sports it's not isolated to sports. It's all throughout life, and I'm not even going to get. I'm not even going to get in. We can get into that on a whole different type of show. We going we gonna keep it moving because I just keep coming
I
off of
saw
Martin
I
Luther
saw I
King
saw
Day,
the tick like
coming off of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day. I could have got into it, but what we're going to do is we're going to keep talking football, and of course we are Eagles fans here, so we're going to talk a little bit about the Eagles and their upcoming matchup, round three with the New York Giants. Round two was kind of a round two. I'm going to call round two a scrimmage. To be honest with you, that's just one we're going to go. It was like a scrimmage. I mean, the Giants didn't play their starters. The Eagles needed to play their starters. So, and they kind of struggled a little bit. Not really, but it's kind of like,
No,
I
it
expected
was
you guys to look a whole lot better than you did, but you didn't. Um,
yeah.
what do you think, Miguel? Like, what are you thinking about this game?
Here was what made me kind of taken aback by the Giants game. We've seen the Eagles do this before, whether it's a great team or not a great team. Slow starts, penalties, just kind of like missing off target and stuff like that. But this was different because they couldn't really put them away. I think it was more the Giants' inexperience versus the Eagles kind of winning that game.
Mhm.
Um, I'm really kind of nervous about Jalen's shoulder. Um, I'm wondering if it's more serious or if it's been re-aggravated because there were just certain throws and certain, I mean, I get, he was playing so to get that number one seed. Um, but even the history of the number one seed wasn't really worth it, to try to get ourselves in that position.
I still feel like he he should have played though.
I mean, if for nothing else to get reps, but the
Yeah,
whole game.
because it would have been like 5 weeks. Let's
Yeah,
say we still beat the Giants. We'd have had the week off. He'd have been out for the last 3 games of the season. We'd have had a week off. You have him coming back in the fifth week to play in
and
a playoff game.
in most cases, I would flat out agree with you. But it's his throwing shoulder that was injured, not his non-throwing shoulder. So that's what gives me kind of takes and who knows, he may go like 20 for 20, 400 yards and 6 touchdowns that'll make it all mute.
I
But
sure hope so.
sure hope so, yeah. But anything in regards to that, so it makes me wonder, if he goes down with an injury in a contract year, do you re-sign him or do you go out and get Lamar Jackson?
I probably, as crazy as I feel saying, I probably don't go after Lamar Jackson.
Right.
We're talking about a knee with him.
Yeah, and it's it's also technically the same quarterback, And granted, Lamar is what, an inch or two taller, but it's still the
He's a
same.
little taller. I feel like Jalen Hurts might be a little stronger.
Yeah.
Um, maybe not arm, but I think Lamar got like a rifle of an arm, but
Hmm.
Jalen like just head to toe, just physically might be a stronger person than Lamar. Just absorb the hits, and even though you don't want him to, I just feel like he'll run you over. I think he'll run you over more so than Lamar would, even though Lamar will try. Don't get it twisted. He'll try to run you over, but I think Jalen has it a little bit more in him. He's more of a bowling ball than Lamar is.
Yeah.
Um,
And he wins, man. That brother wins, man.
yeah, he wins. He knows how to win. Another point of concern with the Eagles this weekend would be Lane Johnson.
Yeah.
Lane Johnson playing with a sports hernia. He decided to not get surgery on it so he can come back and play in the playoffs. Very painful injury, um, but I believe it's one that he can't make any worse. I know somebody that played with. Actually, I know somebody that had a sports hernia in high school during the football season, and he might have gotten it during a game on a Friday night. I want to say he had surgery that week
Mm.
and still ended up playing that same week. I feel like that's how it went down. Either that or he just played through it. I
Mhm.
can't remember which one it was. But that's not to compare the two. That's just to let you know that I know somebody that has done it and they've let me know how painful it was. I've never had that injury. Miguel, have you ever had that injury?
No,
You
but
can,
believe it
you
or
can
not,
say so for the people that's listening.
I played 4 years of high school football. Never got an injury. I played 4 years of high school baseball. I broke my ankle. I tore my hammy and dislocated my knee.
Oh
I'm
my
like, are you
goodness.
kidding me? Yeah. I'm like, what the hell?
You were saving all your injuries for the spring.
Yeah.
Trying to ride it out to the summertime, huh?
That's it. That's it.
Man. Um, so Lane Johnson not being well, he will be playing. Lane Johnson says something along the lines of, if anybody's going to touch my quarterback, y'all going to have to answer to me. Um, let's face it, Jalen Hurts is probably going to get touched, right? Let me just put that out there. Let me just go ahead and put that aside. But him making that statement, it gives you a feeling he's coming. He's coming for business, man. He's coming here to take care of business. He's had his 4 weeks off or whatever the case may be. I think it's four. Um, and he's got like a streak of games for like 2 seasons where he's not let up a sack. And remind me to ask you a question after we finish this segment. But Lane Johnson, how much of an impact will he have in his current condition on this game, in your opinion, Miguel?
I think Lane Johnson at 60% is still better than anything else. Even if he only gives up a half a sack or a touch, I think it's definitely going to be needed, especially because he's protecting Jalen's throwing arm. His
Mhm.
backside I think is protected pretty well, but you know we got to protect that throwing arm. So
Absolutely.
I've when McNabb had that injury and he managed to play I think 4 weeks through it until it got to the point where his thing snapped and then he had to be gone for this season. Um, it's a little different because, and I was a lineman in high school, so the constant pushing back and forth. I mean, that's like your core.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? He's not like dropping back and throwing a pass and then taking a break. He's literally like pushing forward and pushing, getting the power from the legs to the thighs to the hips, and that takes your core. My fear is that it'll wind up being long term, and then he'll have to, recoup for a whole off season and, you know, so
It's a lot. I mean, he could essentially, I don't know who the defensive end is for the Giants. Should have did my homework, but he could essentially see Micah Parsons in the next round if the Eagles make it through and the Cowboys make it through. He
could
could
you
essentially
imagine
see Nick. Was it Nick Bosa? Is it Nick Bosa? Joey Bosa?
Bosa, Nick
One of
Bosa,
them Bosa boys in the following round.
the
You
one
know,
that didn't throw his helmet on the ground and curse
yeah,
out
the
the
one that doesn't play for the Chargers and had like, I ain't gonna say what I said, what I thought, but
you heard him go off about about that whole thing.
yo, no, I didn't. Well, I saw him snapping on the field, but I didn't. After the game, I didn't hear anything from him. But I was thinking about how in football players get so much more leeway, and coaches get so much more leeway when it comes to arguing with referees than basketball players. Like you can make a gesture in a basketball game and get a technical foul. I guess that I don't know. Like I've seen coaches ream a referee out in a football game on the sideline. Nothing happens. But let a coach in the NBA do that. Technical foul might get thrown out the game. It just seems. I know it is what it is, but why is it like that? Is it because maybe we can't really hear what the coach is saying on TV and they know this? Whereas if a coach in basketball does, we're going to hear what he's saying on TV because so many microphones. Like, how do they get away with that?
I think because the play keeps going, that it's like, all right, well, the play's over, we're moving on. Like I just don't think the referees give a damn about what the coaches say. I don't think. Plus, I think if I'm not mistaken, NFL referees are still part time, so it's like they're not really paid to give a crap like that. Um, and the only thing that they're kind of mandated from the league is what happens on the field, not necessarily on the sidelines. Because you notice too, you're starting to see a lot of taunting penalties because
Yes,
of what people are saying. So
yes.
I think they're starting to regulate that a little bit more. But as far as like what the coaches are saying, they're like, yeah, whatever. We already moved. We're not doing anything about that. It's come from the league. So
And I guess they got to get all their argument out within 40 seconds because the next play is going to be coming up.
exactly.
guess they just let them have it.
And I think that's what it is more than anything. There's little room for discussion unless there's a challenge. That's where you can have like the negotiation and stuff like that. But if it's like a judgment call by the referee, I just go ahead. He doesn't, he's gonna be fired in a week. So you know what I mean. So that's pretty much the way the referees kind of take it.
I, I told you to remind me to ask you a question, and I
Oh,
remembered on my
remind me.
own.
Ask the question that you said you told me to remind you.
I remembered on my own, so I'm proud of myself.
Congratulations.
What gets an offensive lineman into the Hall of Fame? Obviously, it can't be. You got to keep your quarterback clean for the most
Right.
part.
And
Pancake blocks.
I don't know. When I think about, of course, like Anthony Munoz, who was, probably the greatest offensive lineman all time. Then you have, John Runyon. So it's like when you think about those guys, you think about just them I think Kelsey's going to the Hall of Fame because he's undersized, but you see him on the screenplays and he's like 50 yards down the field throwing, blocks to the free safety and stuff like that. But I believe now too with analytics, there are stats that offensive linemen can be measured by,
Mm.
especially like how many touches of the QB, how many sacks they give up is like I think the obvious one. Um, how many I believe there's a block a successful block stat. We can delve into that. Um, Because remember, even like the sack, it's only been around since 1981, so that's still fairly a new, not new, but it
So there's
hasn't been
probably
around.
some linemen from the '60s and '70s that deserve to be in the Hall of Fame that aren't there because they didn't give up sacks.
Right. I mean, they were called
Possible.
tackles, or something. Yeah, but um, but yeah, I think if you hear of they always say you don't want to hear about an offensive lineman in a game because that usually means that penalties have been thrown.
Mm.
um, but when you hear, like for instance, yesterday, Dak Prescott, you kept hearing he's not even getting touched. He's dropping back and he has all day to throw. If you start hearing that over the course of time, then you start to see like, all right, I always think about the Dallas Cowboys line in the '90s, the Super Bowl years, and how you had Tuane, you had Eric Williams, you had Mark Stepnoski, and it's like I can't.
I don't mean to cut you. I used to tell people like, they were a great offensive line because you knew the entire offensive
The high,
line name,
yep.
and that wasn't even your team.
Now reverse that and go to the Detroit Lions and Barry Sanders. You can't name one offensive line. The only person in Phillies history that you can name as an opposing lineman is Lomas Brown, because you remember he was the one that predicted
Lomas
that
Brown.
they would beat the Eagles in that playoff game in '95, and they got walloped like 58-20.
I remember
Um,
Lomas Brown.
Rodney Pete going deep with the Hail Mary at the half. But but yeah.
They crushed the Detroit Tigers, and I remember that. That was amazing. Barry
So here's
Sanders, Herman Moore,
Herman Moore, Scott Mitchell.
Scott Mitchell was the quarterback.
Yeah. He was
Yeah,
a big dude too. He was like 6'7", 280.
he was on The Biggest Loser or something like that.
Oh wow.
I think. I think it was him. I think it was him who was on The Biggest Loser.
So of course I always have this argument with Cowboys fans, right? Because they say Emmitt Smith is the greatest running back of our time, which is I don't even think he's in the top 10.
What?
Yes, he's there yardage wise, stuff like that. If you put him in Detroit and put Barry Sanders in Dallas,
Oh my God! Thank God, and thank God Barry Sanders did not play for Dallas. Oh my goodness! Could
because
you imagine what he would have been?
Emmitt Smith averaged 4.5 yards a carry because he was never touched.
Yeah,
Barry Sanders started -8 yards. You know what I mean?
he did. He did start a negative. It was a rule. It
Right.
was
It
a
was it
rule.
was like the rule.
He had to start
But
with a negative.
but
Are you stumping me today, Miguel?
you know what, my friend? I am.
Oh no, because I had a I got a question for you today.
Do you now?
And while you get that together, I will ask the question. Are you ready?
Yes.
I'm pretty sure that you're going to get this, but who was the first? Let me just make sure I'm reading this right. Who was the first major? I feel like this is wrong, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Who's the first major league player to pitch a ball over 100 miles per hour?
The first ever?
The first one, yeah.
Like officially.
All the question said was who was the first major league player to pitch the ball over 100 miles per hour?
It's a stupid question. It's poorly worded. I want to say Nolan Ryan.
Well, you'd be correct. I'm just leave it to you at that.
Oh,
You,
really?
yes. I'm thinking over 100. I'm thinking that
Okay.
might have something to do with that.
I the reason why I say it like that was because like there were pitchers that probably pitched as hard, if not harder.
Okay, right.
But they didn't have the means to measure it, so to speak.
Gotcha.
All right. So yes, there's your guess.
What played for all those teams? Played for all those teams, but played on the 2008 World Series team, which was the Phillies.
Correct.
Matt Stairs.
I hate you.
Listen, that had to be Matt because Matt Stairs was like the only person around long enough to be on all those doggone teams, man.
Wow. So
Matt,
he played on 14 teams, and
hey, it must feel good to be wanted, right?
yeah, he was a rookie at 23. Played till he was 43. He played with Oakland, Kansas City, Washington, Philadelphia, Toronto, Pittsburgh, Boston, Texas, San Diego, Chicago, Cubs, Detroit, and Milwaukee.
And I wonder if he hit home runs all the way up until his last season.
Uh, I will confirm that he did not.
Did he hit home runs after the age of 40?
Yeah, he
Which
was 40. He was exactly 40 when he joined the Phillies.
okay, so yeah, he definitely hit at least one home run with the Phillies. I know that.
So after the age of 40, he hit 22 home runs.
22.
Hmm.
Nice, nice. I won't be hitting any home runs after the age of 40. Just putting that out there. I'm not playing baseball anymore. I'm not doing it. I've said it on video, on the screen, so it's like official now. I guess I'm officially
Are
retired from
are
playing
you
baseball.
officially? Oh my god, we have to have a retirement party.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Let's go to Boots and Bonnets in Chester.
No.
They had do you, that was always a running joke at my previous job because it always has. I was always told they have great soul food, but they also have rooms by the hour
Oh wow.
right above it. So it's like, oh, okay, it's one of
I'd
those
rather
type.
not. I'd rather not. Well, we're gonna get up out of here. We appreciate y'all hanging with us. You got any last words?
I don't. Go Eagles,
There you go. That's all you need.
and
Nothing else
that's it.
matters. Nothing else matters.
Not this week.
All right, well, we getting out of here. We appreciate y'all hanging with us here on the Check Swing podcast. Make sure you check us out over on the YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/new twist radio and check out all of our shows. And the audio will be ready. You will be able to listen to us on demand audio wise as a podcast by this weekend. Promise you that. All right. We getting up out of here. Appreciate y'all chilling with us. We'll talk to y'all next time. Peace.